Hello. Come along as we read Redwall by Brian Jacques. And a lot of his books have his photo on the back of it, especially in this series. So I think we're probably going to get through at least 3 or 4 chapters, because these chapters are not long. So let's get into it. Now, this includes a map of Redwall Abbey and the surrounding countryside. You may rarely refer to in my books years are rarely referred to in my books. Instead, seasons mark passing of time. So, it is 40 seasons and more since I commenced to write of Redwall, the enhanced world I discovered. What an enormous privilege it has been to share my brainchild with readers worldwide. I am certain that in the hearts and minds of all readers, no matter how young or how old, they consider it, as I do, a flowing, timeless saga from Mossflower's green acres, with its ancient abbey standing fast on the dusty path of the woodland fringe, to Semenstrand mountain sentinel of seas on the far western shores. My chief delight and satisfaction is annually to desert the world of modern technology. When winter fades and spring blossoms into summer, I feel an overwhelming urge to travel back once more. Mouse warriors and badger lords come striding through the realms of my imagination, accompanied by their companions, commercial hares, rustic moles, faithful otters, and the manner of diverse creatures, questing, feasting, singing, and battling to defend good against evil. 40 seasons now, and 40 seasons hence. If fate and fortune permit, I will still be inviting you all to continue the saga of Redwall. Come with me, my warriors, off on a trail of high old adventure. Brian Jacques, recorder of Redwall Abbey, Mossflower Country. Who says that I am dead knows not at all. I am, that is. 2 mice within Redwall. The warrior sleeps twixt hall and cavern mole or hole. I am, that is. Take on my mighty roll. Look for the sword in the moonlight streaming forth. At night, when the day's first hour reflects the north, from o'er the threshold seek, and you will see. I am, that is. My sword will wield with me, or will wield for me. Rhyme from beneath the great hall tapestry. It was the start of the summer of the late rose, Mossflower Country shimmering gently in a peaceful haze, beneath delicate at each dew-laden dawn, blossoming through the high sunny note tides, lushing in each crimson tide, twilight that heralded the soft darkness of June nights. Redwall Redwall stood foursquare along the marshes of the old south border, flanked on two sides by mossflower woods, shared depth. The other half of the abbey overlooked undulating sweeps of meadowland, its ancient gate facing the long, dusty road on the western perimeter. From above, it resembled some fabulous dusky jewel, fallen between green mantle of light silk and dark velvet. The first mice had built the abbey of red sandstone, quarried from pits many miles away from or in the northeast. The abbey building was covered across its south face by that type of ivy known as Virginia creeper. The onset of autumn would turn the leaves into a cape of fiery hue, thus adding further glory in the name and legend of Redwall Abbey. Book 1. The Wall. Chapter 1. Mathis cut a comical little figure as he wobbled his way along the clothers with his large sandals flip-flopping and his tail peeping from beneath his baggy folds of oversized novice habit. He paused to gaze upward at the cloudless blue sky and tipped over their enormous sandals. Hazelnuts scattered out upon the grass from the rush basket he was carrying. Unable to stop, he went tumbling a crow over his tail. Bump! The young mouse squeaked in dismay. He rubbed tenderly at his bump, or his damp, snub nose, while slowly taking stock of where he had landed, directly at the feet of Abbot Mortimer. Immediately, Mathis scrambled about on all fours, hastily trying to stuff nuts back into the basket as he muttered clumsily apologies, avoiding the stern gaze of his elder. Sorry, Father Abbot. I tripped, you see. Trod on my abbot, Father Abbot. Oh dear, I mean. The Father Abbot blinked. Solemnly over the top of his glasses. Mathis again. What a young buffoon of a mouse. Only the other day he had sighed old brother Mathis's whiskers while lighting candles. The elder's stern expression softened as he watched the little novice rolling about the grass, gripping with large armfuls of smooth hazelnuts without consideringly seeming to escape his grasp. Shaking his old gray head, yet trying to hide a smile. Abbot Mortimer bent and helped gather up the fallen nuts. "Oh, Mathis, Mathis, my son," he said wearily, "when will you learn to take life a little slower and walk with dignity and humility? How can you ever hope to be accepted as a mouse of Redwall when you're always dashing and grinning from whisker to tail like a mad rabbit?" Mathis tossed the last of the hazelnuts into the basket and stood awkwardly shuffling his large sandals into the grass. How could he say aloud what was in his heart? The abbot put his paw around the young mouse's shoulder. Sensing his secret yearning, for he had ruled Redwall wisely over a great number of years and gained much experience of mouse life, he smiled down at his young charge and spoke kindly to him. "Come with me, Mathis. It is time we talked together." A curious thrush perching in a gnarled pear tree watched the two figures make their way at a sedative pace in the direction of the great hall, one clad in dark gray-brown of the order, the other guarded in the lighter green of a novice. They conversed earnestly in low tones, thinking what a clever bird he was. The thrush swooped down on the basket that had been left behind. Twisters. The basket contained only hard nuts, locked tightly within their shells. Feigning lack of interest, lest any other birds had been witness to his silly mistake, he began whistling jocosely a few bars of his melodious summer song, strolling nonchalantly over to the coastal wall in search of snails. It was cool inside the great hall. Sunlight flooded down in a slanting rainbow hue. Shafts from the high, narrow, stained glass windows. A million-colored dust motes danced and swirled as the two mice trod the ancient stone floor. The Father Abbot halted in front of the wall, on which hung a long tapestry. This was the pride and joy of Redwall. The oldest part had been woven by the founders of the abbey, but each successive generation had added to it. Thus, the tapestry was not only a priceless treasure, but also a magnificent chronicle of early Redwall history. The abbot studied the wonderment of Mathis's eyes as he asked him a question, the answer to which the wise mouse already knew. "What are you looking at, my son?" Mathis pointed to the figure woven into the tapestry. It was a heroic-looking mouse, with a fearless smile on his handsome face. Clad in armor, he leaned casually on the impressive sword, while behind him foxes, wildcats, and vermin fled in terror. The young mouse gazed in admiration. "Oh, Father Abbot," he sighed, "if only I could be like Martin the warrior. He was the bravest, most courageous mouse that ever lived." The abbot sat down slowly on the cool stone floor, resting his back against the wall. "Listen to what I say, Mathis. You have been like a son to me ever since you first came to our gates as an orphaned woodland mouse, begging to be taken in. Come, sit by me, and I will try and explain to you what our order is all about. We are mice of peace. Oh, I know that Martin was a warrior mouse, but those were old days, or those were wild days, when strength was needed. The strength of a champion such as Martin. He arrived here in deep winter, when the founders were under attack from many foxes, vermin, and a great wildcat. So fierce a fighter was Martin that he faced the enemy single-pawed, driving them mercilessly far from Mossflower. During the riot, Martin fought a great battle against overwhelming odds. He emerged victorious after slaying the wildcats with his ancient sword, which became famous throughout the land. But in the last bloody combat, Martin was seriously wounded. He lay injured in the snow until the mice found him. They brought him back to the abbey and cared for his hurts until he regained his strength. Then something seemed to come over him. He was transformed by what could only be called a mouse miracle. Martin forsook the way of a warrior and hung up his sword. That was when our order founded a true vacation. All the mice took a solemn vow never to harm another living creature, unless it was an enemy that sought to harm our order by violence. They vowed to heal the sick, care for the injured, and give aid to the wretched and impoverished. So it was written, and so it has been, through all the ages of mankind since. Excuse me. Today we have a deep honored and highly respected society. Anywhere we go, even far beyond Mossflower, we are treated with courtesy by all creatures. Even predators will not harm a mouse who wears a habit of our order. They know he or she is one who will heal and give aid. It is an unwritten law that Redwall mouse can go anywhere throughout any territory and pass unharmed. At all times, we must live up to this. It is our way, our very life. As the abbot spoke, his voice increased in volume and solemnity. Mathis sat under his stern gaze, completely humbled. Abbot Mortimer stood and put a wrinkled paw lightly on the small head, right between the velvety ears, now drooped with shame. Once more the abbot's heart softened towards the little mouse. Poor Mathis, alas for you, your ambitions. The day of warrior is gone, my son. We live in peace times, thank heaven, and you only think of obeying me, your abbot, and doing as you're bidden. In time to come, when I am long gone to my rest, you will think back on this day and bless my memory, for then you'll be a true member of Redwall. Come now, my young friend, cheer up. It is the summer of the light rose. There are many, many days of warm sun ahead of us. Go back and get your basket of hazelnuts. Tonight, we have a great feast to celebrate. My golden jubilee as abbot. When you've taken the nuts to the kitchen, I have a special task for you. Yes, indeed. I will need some fine fish for the table. Get your rod and line. and tell Brother Ulf that he is to take you fishing in the small boat. That's what young mice like doing, isn't it? Who knows? You may land a fine trout or some sticklebacks. Run along now, young one. Happiness filled Mathis from tail to whiskers, as he bobbed a quick bow to his superior and shuffled off, smiling benignly. The abbot watched him go. Little rascal, he must have a word with the almoner to see if some sandals could be found that were the right fit for Mathis. Small wonder the poor mouse kept tripping up. And with this, that's where we're going to end today. I'm sorry that we only got through one chapter today. But keep in mind, that was only 6 pages worth. And there's 333-ish pages and 15 chapters. So this book is going to take a while for it to be fully finished. And with that, I think we're going to be picking that another chapter or two tomorrow. Until then,